Hey everybody, it's Gunpla. Welcome back to my channel. I know this setup looks a little funny right now because my tripod is currently being used, so I can't use it right now. I gotta use my hands. So it might be a little wobbly, so I'm sorry. But before we get started into today's video, I'm going to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of my channel, UntitlledHQ.com. I'm going to have the link down in the description, and when you click on that link, you're automatically saved 10% off your total order. Now, what you see behind me, that my cases are finally lit up. Look at all 4 of them in their glorious beauty. I'm gonna switch arms. This camera is actually really heavy for me to hold up. So these, I'm still currently working on putting them together, so it might take a little bit of time because I am working by myself and it's pretty time consuming for me to do this. But I have done these 4 right here, and I'm going to be walking you guys through exactly how I did the wiring to get all these to be lit up. And what is cool is that these are actually Wi-Fi controlled LEDs, so you can control them using Google Home, Alexa, or even your phone, which is something that I really wanted because I didn't like having to have so many remotes just to plug, to power on so many displays. So fortunately with this one, they can all be powered on at the same time using one device. So let me get started to showing you guys exactly what I did. I think this is gonna have to be a 2-part video just to be able to squeeze in everything because I don't want the video to be too long. And again, I'm still in the process of putting everything together because look at all these over here. They are not powered on yet, so I'm still in progress of doing that. And hopefully by the end of this week, I will have everything done and I can show you guys the end result of all my hard labor. Anyways, let me get started into showing you exactly step by step what I did. Okay guys, so I'm going to start with all the tools you're going to need for this basic LED setup job. So first off, you're going to need some kind of a heat source. I didn't have a heat gun, so I used this lighter, and you're going to be using this for the heat shrink that's going to be going around the wires. So that's the first thing. Next is heat shrink. Now I bought this off Amazon. I'm going to be including all the links on Amazon, so if you're having trouble finding something, don't worry, it'll be in the description. This is a whole set of heat shrink. So it comes in different sizes. I actually ended up using the size right here the most. Unfortunately, I used it all up and I didn't have enough in this kit, but I did end up using this size right here to cover the LED connection to the LED strip. So that's the next thing you're going to need. Now again, you don't have to use heat shrink, but I highly recommend it because it will make sure that there's a better seal around the soldering that you're going to be doing. Next up, you're going to need this Wi-Fi device LED controller. Now, you can buy the set that has everything inside it, or you can buy each part individually, whatever is more convenient for you. Now, this is basically what is going to be controlling the LEDs via your smartphone or, Alexa or Google Home. And this is what it looks like right here. So you're going to be needing one of these per 2 display cases. That's how my setup is. So I have 2 cases connected to this thing right here. It also comes with this remote, but the remote doesn't work very well from what I have from when I tested it, so that's just garbage for me. I'm going to be using my cell phone or Google to control this. So that's the next thing that you're going to be needing. Next up is you're going to be needing the actual LEDs themselves. This is what it looks like out of the bag. It is a giant roll of LEDs. Now these are RGB LEDs, so they can change colors. They come with these little connectors right here, but of course I just snipped them right off because we won't be using them. Because you see how they're connected right here. So again, you're going to be just cutting this off because that's just trash. You won't be using that for this. Next up are these things right here. Now I don't really know the exact term, wire splitters, but I use these because these are much easier for me to use versus the standard wire splitter one. That one for some reason I just can't use very well and it hurts my hands. So I use this much easier from when I need to strip the wires. So I recommend using this right here. I think this wasn't too expensive, maybe $15 off Amazon. Again, I will have all the links in the description down below. Next up here is a soldering iron. Mine looks really gross and disgusting. This is really old, but it gets the job done. So you're gonna need one of these as well. Next up is you're going to need one of these right here. Now, if you're just only powering up one single display, then you won't be needing this. But if you have various amount of displays like I do, These are going to be a godsend because they will save you a pretty decent amount of money, because you can connect 2 displays on each of these ends and then plug them into one single Wi-Fi. So let me show you what that's going to look like. So basically, this one, now you have to make sure, hopefully the camera, let me zoom in here, because I did that mistake before, not realizing. So you see that these things have arrows right here. So if you were to plug it in like this, it would not work. So you have to make sure that the arrows face each other. So you see how the arrow here matches the arrow here, and they just slide in just like that. Now, you see how wobbly this is? It's not a very secure connection. I'm trying to still figure out how to better connect these 2 pieces without them being so flimsy. At the moment, I'm just using electrical tape, but I'm still trying to figure out the best way to keep these 2 pieces from popping out, because it's a very, very flimsy connection. So now in terms of these 2 pieces, this is what's going to go connected to the LEDs. You zoom back out. So that's basically what the connection is going to look like. Now, while I'm going to leave this here, the next thing you're going to need is a 12-volt power supply, which is this thing right here. So essentially, this is going to be plugged into the wall, of course. Now, this part right here is going to be connected into this part right here. So this is what's going to be supplying the power to your LEDs. Of course, this is all wire going to be hidden in the back. And then each one of these, again, will be will be connected to one display. So display 1 and display 2. I know it kind of looks a little kind of hard to imagine maybe, but hopefully I will show you guys maybe a better visual once obviously I have I'll show you guys the cases. So the next thing that you're going to be needing as well is this set right here. So you can connect the wires using the LEDs using this contraption right here. Basically, you open this up and you slide in the LED right here. That's garbage. I really don't recommend you doing that. It's just not a very good connection. It just overall sucks. Hence why I solder all the connections. I mean, you could twist that if you really don't want to solder, but I just recommend soldering because it's much better. So again, this is going to be connected into here. And again, make sure that the arrows are facing everything. All the arrows must face each other. So let me zoom in here so you guys can see. So you see this has an arrow and this has an arrow as well. So obviously they're in the wrong direction. So you got to flip this over and make sure they are in the right direction. And it's going to go plugged in just like that. Again, it's not the most secure thing in the world. So I do put electrical tape over this to make sure that it is a pretty solid, but you see how it's pretty flimsy. It's not the best. Now, I didn't know that when I bought these little things right here, it would come with these little prong pieces right here, which is what you need to make sure that everything will attach together. So everything is attached by these prong pieces. So I believe you won't be needing this, but it doesn't hurt to buy a baggie and just to make sure you have enough, because these come out. I've already kind of stuck them in here, but you will get these empty like this. So that's when you need these little pieces to stick them in here and be able to connect everything together. So this is the next thing that you're going to need, is this little adapter right here. We're going to be snipping off this piece, and this is where it's going to be connected to the actual LEDs right here. So you'll be soldering this to the LED strip. And then a baggie of these just in case you need extra, depending on how many cases you're going to be lighting up. So that's basically the rough, kind of put together of how my setup is, how everything is connected in my setup. So now that that's out the way, let me show you guys the rest of the things you're going to be needing. Obviously, you're going to be needing, I believe this is called RGB cable. Now, I bought a spool of, I believe, 60 feet, which was just enough to wire 8 display cases. You can buy less if you want to, but you're going to need a good amount of cable depending on how much displays you have. Next up, you're going to need some soldering wire. This one is, I think this is the 0.3, which is extremely tiny, and I prefer this one because it's easier for me to solder directly onto LEDs because they're very small area you're going to have to solder on. So I recommend something small. So this is the one that I use. And lastly, some electrical tape. And that's basically all the tools you're gonna need to be doing this job. Okay, so now I'm going to work from the bottom up on my display cases. So I'm going to start off with the bottom connector. Now, I know this kind of looks a little wonky, but let me show you exactly what I did here. So remember this piece here that I told you guys you needed? So basically this is this piece right here. So like I said, we're going to snip this piece off, and this is going to be basically our base connection to the Wi-Fi controller. Well, to the little Y piece right here. So maybe it'll make more sense. Sorry. Again, this is my first time doing some kind of tutorial like this, so bear with me here. So here is that Y kind of piece that I showed you guys previously. So this will be connecting right into here. Get these prongs, make sure I don't bend them. So this will go connected into this, and again, this into the power supply. So this is the bottom part of the connection. So this is what it's gonna look like once you're all done. That's why I needed these, because I was not able to solder the wire, which is right here, directly onto these little prong pieces. It just did not work for me. So I needed to buy this piece, cut this, and then, you know, join them like this. So that's basically what I did, which is what you're looking at right here. So this here is the wires that are running into the display, and this is that little part right here. I hope that's making sense. So I'm going to be showing you how I solder this part right here. Like I said, I'm not an electrician. This is kind of all just from a couple of videos that I watched on YouTube. Now, it is important to make sure you put the heat shrink on first, because once this is soldered, there's no way that you're going to be able to put the heat shrink on. So make sure that you guys do that. I'm just going to widen this a little bit to make my job a little easier when I solder. So there we go. So that's that part right there. So I can just zoom in a little bit better. Hopefully it's not too dark of a video. There we go. Now, I don't have a tool what's called a helping hand, which is kind of a little pincer set, and it holds it just like this. I don't have that. So I just use a tape roll, and that's what I use to prop it over like that, and that basically works for me. Now, I don't know why it's not getting in focus. There we go. There. I normally don't like to use this mat on the camera, because the camera tends to focus on the little squares, but because I don't want a fire hazard of, you know, soldering over paper, I'm going to be using this mat. Now, you also have to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, so I'm going to be turning on my fan. So while that is heating up, I'm actually going to be showing you how to prep the LED strips. So this is a part that's cut off the LED. Let me zoom out just a little bit. And I think this is, I don't remember how many inches this is in length, but I basically did it where there is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of these things per strip is what I calculate to be the perfect length to work for my display cases. And again, I have the Ikea Detolfs. So the first thing you're gonna need to do is that a lot of these LEDs come with this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Let me zoom in here. There's some kind of waterproof housing on them, and you're gonna have to rip this off in order to get to this right here, which is what you're gonna need to solder the wires to. Just get this to focus just a second here. So here we go. So you see that silicone part, you're gonna have to remove that. So it's pretty easy, it's not hard at all. So you're just gonna basically, let's get this to zoom in here. You're gonna just kind of peel this back a little bit with your nails. And then you're going to push this silicone piece up, and it kind of just pries off like that. So it's pretty simple. And that is it. That's all you have to do. And now you have access to be able to solder it to these parts right here. And you're going to do the same with this side. Sometimes it's a little difficult, and my nails are all broken. So it's even harder for me to kind of work my way in here, but X-Acto knives helps too, but I'm pretty clumsy, so I don't want to cut my fingers, so I'm just not using an X-Acto knife. They're very tender from doing this all day. Okay, So this feels hot. I think the soldering iron is ready. But before I do that, I might as well show you the next thing while that's still, I'm gonna make sure it's really hot. So here is a part of wire that oh shoot. Zoom out again. So here is some RGB wire that I cut, and this is the length that works for me. I will leave the information in the description below, exactly the lengths of everything that I used. I'm sorry, I should have measured it out beforehand, but hey. Anyway, so this is what's going to be connecting each LED from shelf to shelf. I did a zigzag motion. I know it's kind of hard to make it clear right now, but I will be showing you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So you're going to need to be splicing off a little bit off each corner, just like that. So this is why I love this thing. It just saves you so much time. And then I'm going to be twisting each of these little bits that are exposed, because you will be soldering on these little tips before you connect it to my LEDs. And I will be showing you guys exactly what I'm talking about if I'm not making any sense. So I'm just twisting all these so there are no loose strands when I'm trying to solder everything together. All right. You see, I didn't take a lot off because I don't want a huge amount of wire exposed. So it's only just a little bit that I took off, just enough for me to connect it. Alright, so my camera just died on me. So hopefully I didn't lose too much video. Okay, now I feel like this gun is extremely hot. So let me go ahead and start soldering. Just get this to focus on here. I'm sorry guys if this is not in focus. But I hope you can kind of follow along with what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but I'm doing the best I can here. Again, I'm just applying a little bit of solder to each of these twisted pieces to make sure there's a solid connection. Okay, it's looking good so far. You gotta be very careful not to touch the gun. I've actually moved my hand alongside the barrel of this, and I've actually touched the heated metal part, and let me tell you, that hurt like hell. You don't realize how close you're getting to the metal sometimes. I'm gonna put a little bit more right there. Okay, looks good to me. Let me just dab a little bit more right here in this corner. Okay, so that's done right there. I'm gonna let this should be already cool and formed, and then we're gonna move the heat shrink on and seal that. Next up, I'm going to, I think it's called tin, or you know, again, I don't know the exact terminology yet. Some of these things got a little loose, but this is how I did it. Now remember, you gotta slide on the heat shrink before you connect this to the LED. So what I do is I just slide this right in through the tape dispenser or tape roll, just like that. And it makes me working on these LEDs much easier. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of solder on each of these little LED parts. Each of these wire pieces. It's like really hard to kind of talk and think at the same time while doing this. So bear with me here if I'm sounding crazy. And again, it's not in focus. This is so hard. I don't understand this camera. Why it's not focusing. Sorry guys if it's out of focus, but hope you can still kind of follow along with what I'm doing. That's probably why I need to get a macro lens. Okay. Okay, I think I'm just not gonna film me actually doing this because the camera doesn't seem to be wanting to focus. Now, this is a part of the LED that I removed the silicone that I just showed you guys, and I'm going to be soldering little bits onto each of these connectors, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Alright, so I just finished soldering the bits on here, so as you can see, can I zoom in more? Nope. Anyways, I just stick it through the tape and it just makes a perfect little spot. So again, now you see that they're no longer that copper color and they are a silver color. It's because I put a little bit of solder on each of the connections. Now you have to be very cautious that when you do this, just focus, that when you do this, you cannot have any of these connecting at all. So make sure you're very careful that when you apply solder to each part, there's nothing connecting. So the next step is going to be soldering these that you previously soldered onto here, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Okay, so I just finished soldering, and this is what it looks like now that I finished that. So here you can see each of the LEDs are soldered to the strip. None of them are touching each other. And this is what your end product should look like, something along these lines. Now I finished soldering the wires to the LED, and this is what your end product should look like. Now realize that none of these are touching each other, so you're gonna have no problems when you apply the power to this. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to slide up the heat shrink wrap. Now I made this mistake. Try to peel the backing off of this so it'll be easier once you stick it on. So I peel back a little bit and then I slide on the heat shrink. Sometimes it'll be a little bit of a tight fit, but you just kind of just have to wiggle it in there, and there we go. Alright, now make sure that you don't slide up to the point that you cover up the LED. Just zoom out just a little. So this is what the end product's gonna look like. Now I'm gonna apply some heat and seal that heat shrink up. Wait, did I pull it over? Yes, I did. See? I think it must have slid back on there. Let me hold that up. Make sure everything is in there right. I want to cover the LED up. Okay, and then how this works is you literally just apply heat to this. And don't burn yourself. I might be all out. Darn it, I wanted to show you guys what it looks like. Oh, there's a little bit. Rats. Well, so much for showing you guys how this works. Oh, there we go. Well, there's a little bit. I work my way from the center and move out. So you can see that this is slowly starting to shrink up, which is pretty cool. I love watching it shrink. Make sure you don't get too close to the LEDs because you can burn them, from what I've read online. And I do the back as well to make sure there's a nice seal. Now you don't have to use a lighter, you can use a heat gun if you have one. So there is what it looks like after you've applied some heat. And then lastly, you must do these guys as well. I'm going to gently, this one's so chunky that I don't know if it's going to fit. I might have applied too much solder on that. Let's see if I can kind of force it up there. Oh, there we go. Okay. There's like nothing left in this guy. Be right back, guys. Okay, so I'm back with another one. Now again, I'm going to be heat shrinking this right here. Get a nice seal on there. I think this is so relaxing doing this. Now careful, that plastic is hot. I've burnt myself several times doing this. It's so much easier than having to use electrical tape. And looking back on the first, now this is not the first time I've done my own LEDs. My previous ones were just garbage compared to this, which is probably why they don't work. It did a terrible job. But again, because I have no idea what I'm doing. No one's here to teach me the right way to do things, so it's just off Google. So I'm hoping, did I just do this one? Now for the heat shrink, you're always going to want to try to use a size that's closest to it. From what I remember reading online, I think these are a 2:1 or something like that. Again, I really don't know what that means, but I think when it shrinks up, that's how tiny it will get. So I just use a size that's just a little bit bigger than what it is already. All right, and that's done. So all these are nicely sealed and good to go. So here, let me zoom out, is what the finished product will look like. So everything is connected, nicely sealed. And this, again, will be plugged in right into the Wi-Fi, directly into the power supply. And it will power up this LED right here. Oop, my light's in the way. And then, like I said, I used a zigzag pattern. So I'm going to attach another strip, another wire, run it, and then attach that into another strip. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about in a second because I feel like I'm not making any sense. But this is basically the entire process I did. A lot of wiring, a lot of soldering, and then you get the end product that I'm going to show you in a second. So here are some of the 4 cases I have done so far. So let me open up, let's say this one right here. Now you're going to see some fallen models because there's just some casualties and moving things around. So they start off up here, and you see here, this is where part of it was connected, right there. See heat shrink? Then I run it down here, connect it to another LED, and then I run the cable down here, connected to another LED right here. You see the kind of zigzag motion I was telling you about? Then it gets run down and it reverses again, connects right here, and then it goes down and out in the back where it's connected into the Y splitter back there, which you can kind of make out. And that's basically it. So it is a straight up zig zag up, and this is the easiest way that I found to do this that requires the less amount of work. You can run 2 LEDs down per shelf, but that requires way more connecting and soldering, and I just was not ready to do such a big job like that, which for me it is. So this is the easiest way. Now this is still in progress, so I will be showing you guys the updated look to my cases as soon as I finish all the work.